Hello friends, welcome to Byju's classes. In today's session, we are going to discuss about the first subtopic under the chapter stratification and mobility. We are going to understand some concepts related to stratification and mobility. We are going to discuss about equality, inequality, hierarchy, exclusion, poverty, deprivation, all these terms. What are the meaning of these terms? What are the different dimensions to these terms? So all these things we will cover in this session, and understanding these terms is very important for this chapter and also for the discipline of sociology. At different points of time, we will be recalling these terms. So that is the reason having a conceptual clarity is important here. So all these terms we will take up. Apart from that, some more terms can also be there. So let's start the discussion. And first thing we will try to understand is the process of stratification. The name of the topic, the title of the topic is that, stratification and mobility. Under that you have subtopics. So first we need to understand what is stratification. Now stratification is the process by which social inequalities exist in the form of structural hierarchy, in the form of structural hierarchical strata, one placed above the other. This is the meaning of stratification. See, when we use the term stratification, this particular term is derived from the word strata. Strata means layers. Where have we used the term strata, or in which subject have we heard about the term strata? See, geography we might have heard about it. In geology, they discuss about different strata, the different layers of earth. The same thing we are trying to apply in understanding social sciences, in understanding society. We're trying to understand society in terms of layers. Society is divided along different social inequalities, and these social inequalities, they are arranged in a hierarchical order. They are arranged in strata, along strata. So that is called stratification. So stratification is the process by which the society, which is divided along inequalities, is arranged along different layers. These layers are strata, and this entire process is called social stratification. Now this process of social stratification takes place through some sub-processes. Stratification takes place through 4 sub-processes. We will understand all these sub-processes one by one. In any society, there will be differences along different lines. For example, the skin color of people will vary. The texture of hair can vary. Sex of individuals varies, male, female, third category. So in any society, there will be some differences. These are natural differences. Skin color, sex, they're all natural differences. There will be some differences which are created socially. For example, wealth, skills, they might be created socially. So some differences are there which are natural, some differences are there which are social. But the fact is, every society will have differences. Everyone cannot be same in any society. So there is no problem when it comes to having differences within society. But sometimes what happens is, these differences that exist among individuals, between individuals in society, these differences might be evaluated in terms of desirability, evaluated in terms of prestige. White skin tone might be more desirable as compared to black skin tone in case of India. So you are now evaluating, you are associating it in terms of prestige. You are evaluating all these differences in terms of prestige. Someone who is having white skin tone might be given more prestige. Someone who is having darker skin shade might not be given equal amount of prestige. This is something which is specific to Indian society. And now you have evaluated and you have associated some values. So you have now rated people in terms of superiority and inferiority. Certain elements, certain attribute will be considered superior, certain attribute will be considered inferior. First stage was differentiation, second stage is evaluation. On the basis of evaluation, certain attributes are considered superior, certain attributes are considered inferior. Next stage is ranking. People are now arranged, they are ranked together. A comparative ranking is developed. Superiority, inferiority, it helps in deciding this ranking. Next stage, rewards are given on the basis of ranking. You are developing a system of rewards on the basis of this ranking. According to this ranking, opportunities are provided. Those who are higher up the hierarchy, they might be provided more opportunities. They might be given more rewards. They might be given more economic reward, prestige. So rewards are also different as per your rank, which again you have created on your own. The society has created on its own. So now what has happened? Some differences which existed in the society, some of these differences were natural, some of these differences were social. So what we are doing is, from the differences, now we have created a system of stratification. Differences were existing, but now these differences are existing along the strata, different strata. For example, males, females, and then the third category. It can be a strata. On the basis of color also strata can be created. On the basis of wealth, strata can be created. On different bases, you can go for stratification. So this is the meaning of stratification, and this is the process of stratification. It involves 4 sub-processes: differentiation, evaluation, ranking, and rewarding. Now, stratification system that we have developed, it can be an open system, it can be a closed system. Now, what is an open system? An open system of stratification is one in which there is mobility. For example, let's say this is the stratification system. These are the different strata here. In an open system, an individual who is here in the hierarchy can move here. So it permits mobility of an individual from here to here. So that kind of system is an open system. A closed system is one which does not permit this kind of mobility. One example of closed system is caste system. In a caste system, you are born in a particular caste. Changing your caste is very difficult, highly unlikely. There are some avenues of mobility, but it is extremely limited. So caste system is an example of closed system of stratification. Open systems, the capitalistic societies, they have meritocratic system. So on the basis of merit, you can move up the hierarchy. In case you are working hard, you might be rewarded more. You can move up the hierarchy. In case you have talent, in case you are acquiring some specialized education, your position in the hierarchy can improve. So these are examples of open systems. T.B. Bottomore talks about social stratification, and he gives 4 types of social stratification, 4 ways in which societies are stratified or have been stratified. So T.B. Bottomore says that the most ancient form of stratification was slavery. So the society here was divided into slaves and citizens. Citizens are those individuals who had citizenship rights. Slaves did not enjoy any such rights. 500 to 600 BC, that was the period when slavery system was quite predominant. It was there later on as well, but this was the period when it was quite predominant in Europe and many other nations. So it is a kind of stratification. So you have stratified people. Some people are considered as citizens, others are slaves. So 2 different strata in the society. Another kind of stratification is estate system. Now, estate system emerged with the development of feudal system. It was there in place between 7th to 17th century. The society was divided into different layers, strata. They were all legally defined, and with each strata, there was associated some privileges, some duties. The society was divided into strata, these basically 3 kinds of strata. One strata consisted of serfs, one strata consisted of clergy, another strata consisted of feudal lords. The clergy had some specific duties, had to pray for all. The feudal lords, they also had some specific duty here. They were the ones who had to fight wars for others. The serfs, they had to work for others. They had to prepare food for others. They were the ones who were basically the ones who were cultivating. So they had their own specific duties. Apart from this, the feudal lord, who were responsible for defending others, defending everyone, they also controlled land. They also had a significant control over the economy. The clergy also had control over the economy. So duties were divided like this. Certain privileges were also divided like this. And the system that was there, it was kind of an oppressive system. The serfs they were oppressed, they were exploited by the other sections, other states. So this is another kind of stratification system. Caste is again another kind of stratification. It was quite prevalent in India, now also it is prevalent. Caste, it decides one's occupation. It decides one's status in the society. It also decides one's rights. Those who were considered to be untouchables, who were outside the fourfold Varna system, they did not have rights, or their rights were extremely curtailed. They did not have sufficient civil liberties. There will be a lot of restrictions on them. Caste decides one's occupation. If you are born in the caste of ironsmith, your work will be that. If you are born in the caste of oil pressers, you will be pressing oil. You cannot change your occupation. You cannot change your caste, so you cannot change your occupation. And status was also linked with caste. Brahmins will command higher status as compared to someone who is considered untouchable. So caste system is also another kind of stratification system. Social classes are again another kind of stratification system. The society is divided into different classes. How classes are formed? Generally, classes have an economic basis of formation. According to Karl Marx, classes are formed on the basis of ownership or non-ownership of means of production. Those who own means of production, they form one class. Those who do not own means of production, they form the non-ownership class. Again, classes have been defined in different manners. So different thinkers' perspective is different, and we'll be looking at class quite in details. But keep in mind, economic factors are the basis of a society formed on the basis of class. And classes offer greater degree of mobility. Caste system, slavery, mobility was restricted. In class-based system, there is high chances of mobility. It is more of an open system. Social stratification, according to whatever, takes place along these lines. So this is about social stratification. Now we will discuss equality and inequality. What is the meaning here? Now, what is the meaning of inequality? Now, a few moments back, I told you that in every society, there are differences. Male, female, difference in terms of wealth. So differences are natural, or sometimes differences are socially created. But when these differences are evaluated, it leads to inequality. Social evaluation of differences leads to inequality. If you are saying one is superior, one is inferior, that is inequality. So the meaning of social inequality is this. Now, another way also we can look at inequality. Inequality can also mean unequal access to different resources of the society. In a society, there are different kinds of resources. Now, if these resources are not equally distributed, or if you want to access resources, not everyone can access these resources equally, then also it means inequality. According to Budo, in society there are basically four kinds of resources. So what are the different kinds of resources within a society? So in a society, some resources will fall under economic capital. In a society, we have cultural capital, social capital, and symbolic capital. What do we mean by economic capital? Economic capital refers to material assets. Cultural capital refers to individuals' educational status, qualification. Social capital, it refers to one's different kind of networks, groups, what kind of networks, associations you are part of. Symbolic capital refers to an individual's reputation, individual status, prestige. So inequality means if all these capitals, if there is unequal access, then it is inequality. So unequal access to social resources, these resources refers to inequality. Sometimes there can be overlap of these capitals. For example, those who have economic capital, those who have access to finances, those who are rich, highly likely they will also have access to cultural capital. That means they will be the ones who will be able to take up education. They can go for high qualifications. And highly likely these are also the individuals who will be well connected. They will have a good network, and their position in the society might also be good. They will be having a good reputation. So sometimes overlap of capital takes place. Economic capital, cultural capital, social and symbolic capital might overlap together. Now, what are the different types of inequality? According to Rousseau, inequality can be divided into two types. One is natural inequality, physical inequality. Another is moral inequality. So natural inequality means inequality along the lines of age, health, bodily strength, mental abilities. These are all physical inequality. So inequality because of these factors. Moral inequality, it is inequality on the basis of privileges, on the basis of power or honor. So the inequality which is along these lines, they are referred to as moral inequalities. Hallowell and Hallman, they also talk about two kinds of inequalities: inequality of power, inequality of material well-being. Who is? Inequalities can exist at micro level, it can also exist at macro level. Micro level, for example, within countries, there will be inequality. Between countries also there can be inequality. The world is divided. Some countries, they are the developed countries, some countries are the emerging countries, some countries which are considered to be the third world countries. So at the macro level, inequality can be there, and within the country. For example, within India, states like Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, they're lagging behind, while states like Gujarat, Maharashtra, Punjab, they are the prosperous states. So inequality at micro level. According to Marxists, inequality is because of unequal access to means of production, forces of production. The few individuals, they are the ones who own the means of production, they have the monopoly at the cost of others, at the expense of others. Functionalists, they have a different perspective here. Now, according to functionalists, inequality is inevitable. We cannot avoid inequality. Every society will have inequality. Now, what is the reason inequality is inevitable? Now, in every society, different individuals will have different capabilities. And since capabilities are different, rewards will also be different. You might be more capable than me. I am less capable. So you are going to get more rewards, I am going to get less rewards. So since our capabilities are different, our rewards are different. You are brilliant when it comes to academics. So you will get a better job, you will get higher salaries. I am not good. I am not as good as you. So I will not get similar kind of salaries, I will not get similar kind of jobs. So inequality will develop. So unequal capabilities will lead to unequal rewards, which will lead to inequality. And another thing also functionalists talk about, they feel that because of inequality, there are some advantages, some benefits. Because of inequality, all possible jobs are carried out in the society. Some jobs are difficult. So those who are capable enough, they will take it up. Some jobs, they are not good enough. So those who are not capable, they will take it up. But in this process, all the jobs are being carried out, and those jobs which are complex, which require specialized skills, are given to those who can take it up. And consequently, since they are doing these kind of difficult, complex tasks, they are given higher rewards. So inequality ensures that all jobs are taken up. But one criticism is there to functionalist approach. Sometimes inequality can also be dysfunctional for the society. Because of inequality, there can be hostility between different sections of the population. There can be mistrust. So it can create rifts between the different members of the society. So this is a criticism of the functionalist approach towards inequality. What are the different types of equality in society? Peter Saunders talks about the different types of equality. Three kinds of equality as per Peter Saunders. Legal equality, equality of opportunity, equality of outcome. Now, what is the meaning of legal equality? Legal equality means equality before law. Everyone is equal in front of law. So the law does not discriminate between individuals. You might be rich, you might be poor. According to law, you are same. You might belong to the Brahmin caste, you might belong to the scheduled caste. But according to law, you are equal. So our constitution also talks about it, legal equality. You cannot discriminate someone. Second thing is equality of opportunity. That means everyone should be given equal opportunities. Generally, in these meritocratic societies, everyone is given equal opportunities. You start with a level playing field. Everyone has access to basic facilities. So that is equality of opportunity. Third kind of equality is equality of outcome. Now, what is the meaning of equality of outcome? So equality of outcome means, irrespective of your efforts, you will get similar rewards. Two individuals are there. One individual has given more efforts, another individual has not worked hard. But at the end of the day, if both of them are getting same salaries, then it is equality of outcome. So sometimes it is suggested that equality of outcome should not be there, or else the society will not be innovative. No one is going to work hard. There is no incentive for any individual to work hard. So sometimes it is criticized, equality of outcome. So three kinds of equality as per Peter Saunders: legal equality, equality before law, equality of opportunity. Everyone should be given equal opportunities, equality of outcome. Irrespective of your efforts, you are given same rewards. What are some of the consequences of inequality? If in a society inequality prevails, what it can lead to? Goran Thurban talks about certain consequences. Inequality, if it exists, it can lead to ill health. Some people are having access to health resources. Some people are having access to material assets. Others are not. So you're not able to afford for your health. So you will have poor health. High chances of premature death among individuals. Some people have to suffer humiliation. Inequality. Some people have symbolic capital. Some people do not have. So humiliation can be there. Loss of human rights can be there. People might be excluded from participating in social processes. People might be discriminated. People might be marginalized. People might be made powerless. Dehumanization can also take place. Not treated as humans. So if extreme form of inequality is there, it can happen. Sometimes because of inequality, crime rates can also increase. Some people do not have access to resources, but there are some people who are rich. So among these people, there can be emergence of deviant tendencies, delinquent behavior. So crime rates can also increase if inequality persists. Are there any measures of inequality? There is one coefficient which measures inequality. It is called as Gini coefficient. It measures the extent of inequality. Apart from that, different reports, different international organizations, they are also involved in measuring inequality. For example, Oxfam, it keeps on publishing reports. What is the extent of inequality? For example, a couple of years back, it came up with a report which pointed out that whatever increase in wealth has happened between 2000 and 2015, 1% of the global population, the richest 1% of the global population, they have pocketed 50% of this increase. While the poor 50% of the population, they have just got 1% of this increase. This report was published in 2016. This report also pointed out that some 62 individuals world over, their net worth is equal to the net worth of 3.6 billion individuals who are at the bottom. So this is the extent of inequality. Some 60 odd individuals, they have equal wealth that 3.6 billion individuals have. So Oxfam had pointed this out. Sometimes World Bank also comes up with these kind of reports. World Bank had also talked about inequality. It also had talked about some of the mechanisms by which we can tackle inequality. So we measure inequality from time to time. What are some of the suggestions, measures by which inequality can be addressed? One suggestion, one mechanism that we have is our constitution. Constitution has different provisions which talk about addressing inequality. It might not be explicitly saying that, but it talks about it. For example, the different directive principles, they talk about it. Equal pay for equal work, just wages should be provided. So they're all part of constitution. Apart from that, we also have positive discrimination mechanisms. So those who are at the bottom, they should be provided some benefits. They should be given more representation. So positive discrimination. Apart from this, we have progressive taxation. Those who are rich should be taxed more. That is how our tax slabs are designed. Those whose salaries are less might not have to pay taxes. As the salaries increases, the tax rates increases. Different social security schemes are there to address inequality, or at least those who are at the bottom, you are provided some sort of benefit, some sort of relief. Now, the Oxfam report also talks about certain policy suggestions to address inequality. It says that those who are rich and those who are in power, the distance has to be maintained between them. Rich people should not be influencing policies of the government. If rich people influence policy of the government, then the policies will be again in favor of the rich people, and again inequality will increase. So this needs to be separated. Crony capitalism needs to be stopped. Apart from that, Oxfam report also suggests that those who are the laborers, their different rights needs to be protected. They should be given avenues for bargaining. Formation of unions, associations should be allowed. Apart from that, they're also saying that the tax havens, the operation of tax havens needs to be curtailed. International alliances should be there, which would prevent formation of tax havens and operation of tax havens. Apart from this, World Bank also talked about certain specific policy recommendations. And this policy recommendations is not only for inequality but also for poverty. They are saying that we need to focus on universalization of education. Everyone should be having access to education. Every child should be provided basic health interventions. So before birth, when the female is pregnant, interventions you provide, and after birth also different interventions needs to be provided. Everyone should be brought under universal health coverage. Infrastructure facilities needs to be improved. Basic infrastructure, road and all these things needs to be improved. Progressive taxation, they're also talking about. They're also saying that we need to provide direct benefit transfer. Certain sections of the population, even if you initiate different kind of schemes, social security schemes, they are excluded. And another thing they're saying is we need to go for direct benefit transfers, direct cash transfers. So these are the suggestions given by World Bank and Oxfam. Apart from this, these are the suggestions that we already have. So this is about equality and inequality. Now the next important concept that we'll understand is the concept of hierarchy. What is the meaning of hierarchy? Now it was felt that hierarchy prevailed in traditional societies, while stratification is a feature of modern societies. Hierarchy in traditional society, that means hierarchy of estates, hierarchy of castes. And this hierarchy was assumed to be natural. It was legitimized as something which is natural. Stratification, on the other hand, was felt to prevail in modern societies. And in this case, the inequalities that exist, they were not considered to be part of the divine order. They were not considered to be natural. So this is something which was assumed. But again, hierarchy as a feature of traditional society, stratification as a feature of modern society might not be completely true. Rather, what we can accept is inequalities lead to stratification, which in turn lead to hierarchy. This is something which is most commonly accepted. Rather than finding the differences here in terms of societies, what we can say is inequalities lead to stratification. Differences lead to inequalities when we are evaluating them. These inequalities will lead to stratification, and stratification leads to hierarchy. Whenever we are saying stratification, different groups are arranged in the form of a hierarchy. So hierarchy can be on the basis of different lines. It can be on the lines of caste, it can be on the lines of class, gender, access to political power, all these dimensions. Along all these dimensions, there can be hierarchy. Now, what are some of the perspectives related to hierarchy? Those who are the functionalists. Now, according to them, hierarchy denotes higher level of specialization, higher level of differentiation in the society. The society is more differentiated. That is what hierarchy is pointing out. So it is reflecting higher level of division of labor. In traditional society, the amount of hierarchy will not be that much. As we move towards industrial society, as traditional society moves towards industrialization, moves towards modernization, greater amount of specialization is there, greater amount of differentiation is there. And because of that, hierarchy develops over a period of time. So greater amount of division of labor is reflected by higher amount of hierarchy as per the functionalist. According to Marxists, hierarchy is because of dominant classes. Hierarchy is on the basis of access to means of production. And hierarchy is something which creates conflicts. Hierarchy is something which is a barrier to the creation of class-based society. Postmodernists, they have again another perspective. Now, according to them, now there exists a continuum in Western societies of individualized inequalities. Previously, inequalities were in the form of groups. One group is here, another group is here, and this group will have individuals who are having similar kind of access to resources, or they will have similar position in the class hierarchy. But now every individual is different. There is a continuum here, continuum of individualized inequalities. So you have infinite number of stratum here, infinite stratum, numerous hierarchies. Multiple hierarchies are there, and you have infinite stratum. So individualized inequalities in Western societies as per postmodernist thinkers. Previously, it was thought that there are limited number of hierarchies. Another way also we can look at hierarchy. Hierarchy exists within organizations, and hierarchy is very, very relevant when it comes to organizations. Hierarchy plays a very important role when it comes to organization. Just think about any organization. Maybe some of you are working. So if you're working in that or in a particular organization, just what is the hierarchy structure? You might have been recruited at the bottom, but your organization will have a CEO, and in between there will be multiple levels: MD, executive directors, managing directors, CEO. Different levels are there. So there is a hierarchy here, and this hierarchy is very, very relevant because this hierarchy gives a direction to the efforts of the organization, collective efforts. Orders are executed on the basis of this hierarchy. So this kind of hierarchy is quite relevant, quite required. All organizations will have some sort of hierarchy, and this hierarchy can be formal, it can be informal. Sometimes informal hierarchy is also there. It is not written anywhere, but the hierarchical structure can be there. So hierarchy in organizations refers to this. Now, what is the relationship between hierarchy and equality? In a democratic society, everyone is considered to be equal. One of the principles of democracy is this: institutionalized egalitarianism. So democracy is institutionalized egalitarianism. Everyone is considered to be equal. Everyone has equal mass. Everyone has same amount of vote. Everyone has equal power to decide his or her representative, political representative. So democratic society talks about political equality. It ensures political equality. Universal electoral franchise is an example of that. But does it also mean social and economic equality? Just think about it. Are we equal along these lines? Political equality exists in case of India, but social and economic equality exists. Social and economic equality is not there. Political equality is there. So different types of inequalities, different types of hierarchies exist. Any individual is part of multiple hierarchies in case of any society. So this is the link between hierarchy and equality. So this is the meaning of hierarchy, how hierarchy has been looked at by different thinkers, how hierarchy is sometimes relevant in organizations. Just think about organizations like army, their hierarchy is extremely relevant. Think of any particular scenario, for example, disaster management or war. At that point of time, hierarchy is very important. There has to be a chain of command. And roles, responsibilities, duties, everything is defined as per the hierarchy. So hierarchy is very relevant for organizations. But hierarchy and equality, they are going against one another. In democratic societies, we have political equality, but social economic inequality exists as a result of which there is hierarchy. So individual becomes part of multiple hierarchies. The next important concept is the concept of poverty. So what is the meaning of poverty? What are the different dimensions of poverty? What are the different theories related to poverty? That is what we are going to understand in this session. First thing, what is poverty? How do you define poverty? We use this term poverty quite often, but do we understand the meaning of poverty? If we use the term poverty, what is the thought process that is going in our mind? Now, understanding poverty, defining poverty becomes difficult. Some thinkers say that poverty refers to lack of material resources, which is required for a minimum standard of life. But again, in this particular definition also you can find some flaws. Minimum. What exactly is minimum? How do you define that? It can also vary. So that is the reason defining poverty becomes difficult. Also, the way a sociologist will look at poverty, the way an economist will look at poverty, that will vary. Sociologist will talk about human well-being. An economist will look at availability of resources, economic resources, whether economic resources are there or not. If it is not there, it refers to poverty. But whatever be the case, one thing has to be noted here is poverty is multidimensional. There are multiple determinants to poverty. Multiple factors cause poverty, and poverty is manifested in different ways, in multiple ways. For example, poverty can refer to different things. Poverty can refer to lack of assets, assetlessness, landlessness, lack of income. Poverty can refer to low consumption. You do not have money to consume. It can refer to low savings. You do not have money. How will you save money? It can refer to high indebtedness. It can refer to joblessness. It can refer to underemployment as well. It can refer to livelihood insecurity. You have a job at present, but you don't know tomorrow whether you will have a job or not. It refers to illiteracy, lack of education, formal training. You are illiterate. It means you are sick, but you are not able to afford healthcare. You are not able to afford drugs for your children when they require it. So poor health, ill health, lack of housing, all these things are manifestation of poverty. It also means marginalization. It also means high dependency. You are marginalized. You are dependent on someone, or you are dependent on some government scheme. There are people who are dependent on government schemes for their survival. Different social security schemes. They cannot afford to get all these things on their own. So they will depend on some schemes. For example, food grain schemes are there. Annapurna scheme. Every month, those who are above the age of 65, those who are in the BPL category, they are provided some food grains per month, some 10 kilos of food grains per month. So there are people who are dependent on these schemes. They cannot get food from any other source. Poverty also means lack of contacts. Very few contacts. You do not have any influence in key institutions. It also means you do not have any influence anywhere. It also means you are always competing with others for resources. You might have observed in slums, people will be standing in queue to collect water. One source of water will be there and people are competing amongst themselves. It also means economic vulnerability, subordination. In case anything happens, any economic crisis is there or any policy changes there, they are the ones who are getting impacted more. In case natural calamity is there, poor get more impacted than those who are affluent. So they are always more vulnerable. They are always subordinated. Poverty can also lead to low self-esteem. It can lead to low social status. Also, those who are poor, they generally lack future plan. They only focus on subsistence living. See, they do not have 2 square meals a day. So their main aim here is to ensure that they are not sleeping in empty stomach. So they will focus more on acquiring those two basic meals for the day. They will focus on subsistence. They're not planning for the future. They cannot plan for the future. So they suffer these restrictions, limitations. So poverty is a multidimensional. Poverty is manifested through all these forms, and it has multiple determinants. Lack of education, lack of access to healthcare, all these things can lead to poverty. Now, what are the different types of poverty? Absolute poverty, relative poverty, subjective poverty. Now, what is the meaning of absolute poverty? When you are trying to measure poverty in terms of some fixed yardstick, then it is called absolute poverty. For example, you defined a poverty line. That means this much amount of money, let's say this poverty line is rupees 50 per day. So what is the meaning of this poverty line? The meaning here is every individual needs at least rupees 50 to ensure that his basic necessities, basic requirements are met. So you decided this as the poverty line. Those who are earning less than rupees 50 per day, they are considered poor. Those who are earning greater than 50 rupees, they are considered to be not poor, above poverty line. So this is the meaning of poverty line. This is the meaning of absolute poverty. Some fixed yardstick has been created and you are measuring according to it. But again, there are some criticisms to this absolute poverty method. This line can vary from place to place with time. In a particular place, 50 rupees can get you decent amount of stuff. In rural areas, maybe you can afford many things, but in urban areas, you might not be able to. Also, from time to time, this needs to be revised. Today, 50 rupees might get you certain amount of goods, but tomorrow, the value of 50 rupees might decrease. So with time, it varies. Apart from that, sometimes inclusion exclusion errors also takes place. In case of India, we might exclude some people who are poor, we might include some people who are not poor. Another mechanism of measuring poverty is relative poverty. Now, what is relative poverty? Now, in this, the judgment of the members is used. So, members of the society themselves, they decide what should be considered as acceptable standards of living. So, generally, what happens is in these societies, especially in the advanced economies, everyone generally will be having access to all the different kind of resources. Basic requirements will be met. But in these societies, also there will be some people who will be comparatively poor as compared to the rich sections. Let's say this is the rich section, this is the poor section. So in these societies also, there is a difference. These people will be lagging behind as compared to the rich section. So here what this government will generally do, or the members of society, they will decide that some section of the population, even if they are having the basic requirements, they should be called poor. They are relatively poor as compared to this section of the population. And since they are relatively poor, they might be given some benefits. Some coupons can be provided to them, some benefits can be extended to them, since they are relatively poor as compared to the larger section of the population. Another kind of poverty is subjective poverty. Now what is the meaning of subjective poverty? Subjective poverty means that the individual feels he or she is poor. For example, a millionaire might not be absolutely poor. Millionaire definitely has all the basic requirements in place. A millionaire may not be relatively poor. He will be among the rich sections of the population. But he might feel that he or she is poor. Why? Because that individual was a billionaire before. Now he has lost wealth and he has become a millionaire. So he is feeling poor because he was richer before. So this kind of poverty is subjective poverty. This kind of poverty leads to relative deprivation. You are feeling deprived as compared to what you were in the past. So this kind of poverty is referred to as subjective poverty. Now, what we will do, we will try to understand some of the theories which try to explain poverty. So we look at poverty from different lenses, from different angles. So what are some of the prominent theories of poverty? Now, first theory, blame the poor view. So according to this theory, the poor people, they are themselves responsible for their being poor. Poor people, they do not have skills, they do not have competency. Poor people might be lazy, they're unwilling to work. That is the reason they are poor. Had they been more willing to join the labor force, had they been competent, had they been skilled, they would not have been poor. Since they are not competent, they're not skilled, they are unwilling to join the labor force, that is the reason they are poor. Blame the system. See, the questions that we can raise from this perspective, blame the poor view, is, see, why that person lacks skills, why that person lacks competency. Maybe the structure is such, the social structure is such that prevented him from accessing skills. Maybe the social structures are such that it prevents him from accessing education. So blame the system tries to look at it from this angle. Maybe the system is such, the structure is such that the poor person could not acquire skills, the poor person could not get competency. So blame the system view, it looks at the structural factors. For example, class dimensions, gender dimensions, ethnicity, all these dimensions that we'll see. See, for example, women in case of India, and not only India, world over, they will be more poor as compared to their male counterparts. So gender dimension of poverty. Maybe there is some sort of discrimination against women. That is the reason they are poor. Caste, those who are at the bottom of the caste hierarchy, they are excluded from participating in social life, and because of that, maybe they are poor. So blame the system view looks at poverty from the angle of, from the view of the system. Positive feedback theory. What is the meaning here? Now, positive feedback theory of poverty is also referred to as the vicious cycle theory. Now, according to it, poverty leads to poverty. Poverty breeds poverty. See, when we say positive feedback, we are not saying that anything is positive here. What we are rather saying is poverty acts as a positive feedback to poverty. Poverty leads to poverty. One example here. If a person is poor, high chances that he might not be able to afford education, or he might not be able to afford healthcare. So if you are poor, you're not able to afford nutrition, you're not able to afford healthcare. So as a result of which, the child in your family might fall sick. If the child is falling sick quite often, then the physical development, cognitive development of the child will get impacted. Now, if physical development, cognitive development is getting impacted, participation in school will get impacted, attendance will get impacted, absenteeism will be high. So as a result, the child's education attainment will suffer. If education attainment is suffering, then skill development is getting impacted. So over a period of time, the capacity of that person who has become an adult and was a child before, the capacity of that person to get a job will also be impacted. So gainful employment will not be there. So again, that person will fall back into poverty. So poverty reinforces poverty. Poverty acts as a feedback to poverty. So this is called the vicious cycle of poverty. Positive feedback to increase poverty or perpetuate poverty. What is the Marxist approach to understand poverty? What is the Marxist approach to understand poverty? See, according to this approach, poverty is because of lack of access to means of production, lack of ownership, lack of control over means of production. So those who do not have ownership or control over means of production, they are the ones who are likely to be poor. Stratification theory of poverty. See, according to this theory, the society is stratified, and it is the poor people who are at the bottom position of the pyramid. They are at the base of the stratification system. Poverty benefits certain sections of the population according to this theory. In fact, poverty benefits the majority of the population. How can poverty benefit majority of the population? See, because of prevalence of poverty, certain kind of menial activities activities are carried out. The lower jobs, they are all carried out because of poverty. There are people who are poor, they do not have any other option. So even if the salaries are less, they're willing to take it up. So there's a labor surplus, and these menial tasks have to be carried out. Even if you're paying less amount of wages, the work will be carried out. Just think about activities like manual scavenging. Why it is prevalent? Why it continues? Because there are people who are poor and they have to carry it out. So it benefits a large section of the population. Apart from that, those who are poor, they also form the baseline of failure. They are at the bottom of the population. Other members of society, for them, they are the benchmark. That we do not want to fall into that level. So they serve as a baseline of failure. Others would want to avoid falling into that line. There's also a linkage between poverty and power. Ralph Gilliland, in his work Politics and Poverty, talks about it. Those who are poor, they lack bargaining power. So if bargaining power is not there, ability to acquire scarce resources also gets impacted. Just think about it. Farmers and peasants, they generally lack bargaining power. While we will see formation of unions, trade unions among workers, but among agricultural farmers and peasants, bargaining power is less, and their per capita income, their wages will also be less. So bargaining power also plays a very important role when it comes to acquiring resources. So if bargaining power is not there, if you cannot acquire resources, you will not be having sufficient wages, so you will be poor. Feminist perspective on poverty. Now, feminist perspective says that poverty is sexist. Not everyone is equally impacted by poverty. Women are more impacted by poverty. More women are poor as compared to male counterparts. And there are multiple reasons for it. What can be the possible reasons for perpetuation of poverty among females? We'll see in a while. But keep this in mind, poverty is sexist. More women are impacted by poverty. There exists a gender pay gap. For the same amount of work, equal amount of work, men are paid more than their women counterparts. And this is something which is not only prevalent in India, other parts also it is there. Apart from this, women's participation in the labor force is also less. Dependency theory. We'll be discussing dependency theory in details, and it is a part of our syllabus, chapter 10. So dependency theory says that the developed countries, the developing countries, the Western countries and the Eastern countries, they are linked in such a manner that the Western countries, the developed countries continue to progress, while for the developing countries, at max, at the best possible scenario for them is uneven development. So the developing countries, they are always lagging behind. The East countries, they're always lagging behind, and poverty is always perpetuated. What is the reason for the poverty? According to dependency theory, the kind of relationship that exists between the developed and these countries, that relationship is such which perpetuates poverty. So the reason for poverty is the exploitative kind of relationship. Apart from that, some thinkers, they have talked about institutions, the role of institutions. For example, Gunnar Myrdal says that poverty is because of lack of development of institutions. If you have proper institutional structures within your economy, then poverty can be tackled. But if these proper institutions are not there, then we will have perpetuation of poverty. There is another theory to poverty, the cultural perspective. Now, this particular perspective has been provided by Oscar Lewis. Oscar Lewis talks about culture of poverty. He studied US in 1950s, and from his observation, from his study, he comes to this conclusion. What is the meaning of culture of poverty? According to Oscar Lewis, poverty is a result of social atmosphere rather than individual shortcomings. The society is such that it perpetuates poverty. Poverty is not because of an individual or because of some shortcoming of an individual, but the society is such that it promotes poverty. It perpetuates poverty. For example, he observes that those who are poor, they have some specific kind of values, and these values keep on perpetuating poverty. Among the lower classes, certain values are there, certain behavioral patterns are there. It promotes poverty. These kind of values, behavioral patterns is not applicable, is not found among the higher classes. What are these values? What are these behavioral patterns? He finds that among them, fatalism is quite high. They resign themselves to fate. Amongst them, he finds that they focus more on instant gratification. They will not go for deferred gratification. Deferred gratification means you are investing now so that you will get the benefits later on. Education is an example of deferred gratification. You study now and you keep on studying. You complete your schooling, you complete your graduation, you go complete your post-graduation, then you go for a job. So you are investing in yourself now so that you will get the benefits later. So that is deferred gratification. But people who are in the lower classes, they will focus on instant gratification. They want immediate rewards. Child labor is an example of this. You work today, you get the benefits today itself. You get some wages today itself. Why invest in education if child labor is possible? That is something which should be associated with lower class. So what he's saying is, among these sections of population, you find fatalism, they resign to fate, they focus on instant gratification, and you find a culture of helplessness, powerlessness. So this subculture promotes poverty as per Oscar Lewis.